What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I just want to go over Summer Game Fest. I think this is probably the smartest video to do because, look, there were several announcements, and I want to talk about the ones that stood out to me. Meanwhile, we can also use this video to address the multiple elephants in the room of, like, where the heck was X or Y game, okay? Now, like, just taking a few seconds because I ended the live stream and then I came here. Just to kind of take a few steps back, was there things in the show that were impressive? Yes, I feel like the show almost got in its own way, a few different times. There was a lot of games that felt very samey that were kind of back-to-back, right? They also, as they normally do at these Jeff Keighley shows, they'll double or triple or quadruple down on the same types of games. So, like, Mortal Shell 2 looked really cool, but once you see, like, 15 FromSoft type games, it kind of, like, waters it down a little bit, right? Some of the more anime style games, they sometimes can look similar, especially when you do like 3 of those games back to back. So those issues persisted. Those issues were here. But were there things? I mean, okay, ending it with Resident Evil 9, I am not very pleased with how dirty we were done by not only doing it once, but twice, right? They teased it 2 different times. The second time, they basically outright say, they're not going to do it, and then it's there, okay? I guess I applaud them for putting us through the ringer. Never do that again. Like, if you did that for Kingdom Hearts, my heart would stop. I'd have a heart attack. So please don't ever do that again. But it was very cool to see RE9. I don't think too much can be taken from it. I mean, I might do a video, down the line where we look over the trailer, but very excited. The release date's the big part to it, right? That they actually give that late February release date. 2026 is stacked, right? But okay, it wasn't just the Resident Evil show. Project Century, right? The RGG game looks so, the name change is cool, and seeing it again is cool, but I mean, they went above and beyond, right? Which I was hoping for. I was screaming at the live stream, when watching it, please, like, keep going. And they did. We got gameplay. There's choices. It looks trippy, looks freaking awesome. Scott Pilgrim, oh my God, we're coming back, right? Not only do we get the Marvel one later this year, but Scott Pilgrim returns in what probably is going to be the best of all of these games, the Shredder's Revenge of the world, and going back where it rightfully started in, like, the new age, right? So that was awesome. Mixtape looked really, really good. Continue the trend we saw last year at the Xbox show. Just keeps that vibes going. Really awesome. Sonic, I'm not a huge Sonic racing guy, but the added on characters looks really fun. Dying Light the Beast, maybe the best kind of package because that game looked really cool, and we knew, about it, but they did a good job of, like, okay, here's a trailer, it's mixed in with some gameplay, they're giving us a scope, and it also comes out like 2 months from now. Both Lego games actually looked really cool. I'm a big Mario Party fan, so, like, hey, I mean, they're literally just ripping off the idea. Whatevs, I like Mario Party, and I think I would like that one too. And then that other Lego game, pretty creative, and again, that was kind of a theme too, that Ill game, where it was super realistic Unreal Engine 5 horror. That looked pretty cool. There were some games that stood out through a little bit of creativity. Even that Nickelodeon game, really cool to see the band kind of, because we had a bunch of Nickelodeon games, back in the mid-2000s that stopped. But I mean, you really see SpongeBob, but Fairly Odd Parents are involved because of the poof, and you're going to get more than just those two. So, and I guess here, okay, this kind of goes into a little bit of a weakness, though. Back and forth. There were things, I just rattled them off. Getting Bond and getting that, Mads Mikkelsen going up there with Hitman. The issue is, beyond these couple things that I'm listing, a lot of these games I think have potential, but they didn't, and this happens, I guess, in Jeff Keighley shows, they don't oftentimes, like, double down and show you why you really need to be excited. So, there was that, like, Total War RTS type game towards the beginning where you're taking a part in the battle, right? If you guys remember that one. And you saw gameplay for, no joke, maybe like 5 seconds, right? Like, you were riding the horse and you see kind of the UI, and that's it. That game could be incredible because I love, like, Total War games when you actually get into the battle and you're looking, like, top down and you're controlling, the different groups. I love that stuff. I love the strategy, but I also love just, like, massive battles, and that's why I like that Kingmakers game that's coming out. So, that has a lot of potential, but we saw nothing, right? The Game of Thrones thing, how am I supposed to know? Like, it's not a mobile thing, right? I guess it's PC and it's an RTS as well. That could be so good. It would be like an Empire at War, like Star Wars type thing back in the day. Like, that has so much potential, but you show nothing. And a lot of these games did that. You know, they're based off a premise or an idea, but you show 5 seconds of that idea, right? So, I mean, that's really, in terms of what we actually saw, that's my takeaway. You know, like Death Stranding 2, it's like, it's so good. I'm a big fan. I've become a bigger and bigger fan after replaying and finally beating Death Stranding like a week ago, okay? But that trailer, I mean, like the intrigue, they cut out the intrigue. That the cutscene they showed, they clearly cut, you know, the middle part of it. And it's like, okay, well, join us on Sunday. We're going to give you more. And it's like, man, you know, I like Hideo talking, but it's like, well, it's nothing. You really didn't give anything for Death Stranding 2, okay? And then, you know, the Nintendo, Microsoft, I guess we're kind of moving into the significant weakness, but to kind of, again, finish off like what we actually saw, there was good stuff. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there was absolutely nothing. I think there was probably a good 10 or so things, you know, that were substantial. And, you know, anytime you get a date, you know, it's a huge pro in my book. And even though like a mixtape, you don't get a date, well, we saw more of the game, right? So kind of a little bit of a win. I'd say it kind of goes over to a win. But just too many games that felt similar, and then way too much, which does happen often at his shows, way too much like, well, we'll like pitch you on the idea, but then like in terms of what we're actually going to show you, we're not going to show you anything. So I guess you're just going to have to hold on to that idea, you know what I mean? So not pleased with that. As for the major weakness was just, you know, the things that I think were not shown. Now here's the deal, all right? Because I don't want to come across, you know, a certain way. I really try to pride myself even, okay, in terms of setting your expectations the right way, okay? I was not looking for Kingdom Hearts 4 and Wolverine and Judas and BioShock and GTA 6 and Red Dead 3. Notice how I'm getting more exaggerative because that's what some people do, okay? What I was expecting, I think, was pretty reasonable. And I mean, like, we had a lot of misses. You know, while the Deadpool VR thing was super cool, I think Neil Patrick Harris is a good pick, by the way, they do it by insulting, in a way, Hollow Knight, right? The joke is, hey, skip the Silksong trailer to show off my game. Hilarious, except we still don't have Silksong, right? That's a realistic game that I think could have been here. The Resident Evil thing I'll bring back up again. You know, I don't think that was very cool. You know, I don't like having my heart tugged like that through double deception, you know, is what we got there. Oh, speaking of deception, that Square Enix game, well, actually, that goes into something, right? So Square Enix, no Kingdom Hearts. Again, I don't think that was all that realistic, but, and because of tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, right? Probably FF9 wasn't the most realistic, but still, you know, one can hope. And instead, you get the Deception game. Now, that Deception game looked cool. I like murder mystery games like that quite a bit. So, and that's the tough thing. It's like, well, I actually think that's a cool game. And I think that it's a smaller scale. You know, it probably didn't cost all that much to make, right? We're not talking about a freaking Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy project. So it's like, okay, cool. I can respect that you're trying some stuff, but then, you know, you take away, you know, that. Again, you know, PlayStation, where's God of War? Where's the God of War Metroidvania type game? I believe it's real, but like, are they going to announce it? You're not doing it at Xbox unless you're insane. So like, where are you gonna, you know, what's going on with that? I guess Death Stranding, you know, really was PlayStation's contribution, you know, to the show. Xbox, I mean, you guys can maybe tell me in the comments, you probably know more than one man, you know, collectively. Where was Xbox? Like, did they do something that I didn't notice was like them publishing? I don't know. You know, games like that though, like where was God of War? Final Fantasy, maybe a little bit of a reach, Hollow Knight, but like Tomb Raider, where was Tomb Raider? You know, you got IO Interactive. I guess that was the game. No Wolf Among Us expected. But remember, we heard Wolf, Tomb Raider, or 007, and I guess 007 was the game that was on the stage, right? We're going to get more of 007 later today. So I don't know. It was an interesting show. Like I truly, genuinely believe the more I think about it, the more I don't think it was as bad as kind of like in the moment. The individual announcements kind of taken on their own are fine. You know, Atomic Heart 2, that's cool. That looks like a classic. Okay, first game's pretty solid. Second game, we're going to go wild, right? The multiplayer thing that they're doing, I actually think that's really, really clever and creative, you know, MMO type thing. So, all right, cool. But Atomic Heart 2, 2-3 years away, you know, so that's one of those, okay, it's super, super far. And then, you know, so, but it's cool, but it's also like, well, I can't get too excited. There was that one game like Tua something, it was like the Japanese inspired. There was a couple games that look like Hades and Bastion, and there was like 2 games that look like Hades and Bastion. Both of those look cool. The issue is I can't remember their names. And I mean, it's a joke. It's also, you know, I'm trying to process like 50 games that we just saw. But to be honest, I genuinely believe that does still highlight highlight the biggest issue with the show is sometimes they get into the too samey stuff. Like I love Metroidvania type games. I love games like that, Hades, Bastion, like roguelike type stuff. I love that stuff. And we saw a couple, but then it's like, well, I actually can't remember which one I'm thinking in my head. You know, I don't have it right here on the computer when I'm recording, but it's like I can't. And then like Mortal Shell, that stands out because it was early. I can remember that. The music stood out. There was a lot of good music, by the way. But some of these games, like when you play them back to back to back, and a lot of them look similar, it's hard to, you know, establish themselves, and it's hard for me to remember what they are now. And I mean, these are games that are coming out. They want people to buy it. So I don't know. Mixed show. Played with my emotions for Resident Evil. Played around with me for like, I was half expecting God of War the whole show. So it put me through the ringer. But I don't know. What I want to stress is that there were good games. I guess that really, maybe that's the optimistic side of me that some people online hate. That really is the stressed thing I want to say, you know, as I end this video, is like, I don't really think it was a good show. I'd probably say it wasn't a good show, but it had its moments. And generally, like days, weeks, months after the show, what I will take from it are the big announcements I liked. You know, like I was thinking about Scott Pilgrim for half that show, because it's like, okay, that hit, you know, that they nailed it. So that's something I'm going to think about, and like I'm going to be ready to play that in a year, right? So I feel like I'm trying to have it both ways, where I can like criticize and say, you know, not the greatest show, but I'm also going to take what I liked. You know what I mean? I'm going to pull the stuff that I liked and say, well, I'll take that stuff. You know, I'll take it, while also saying that the show overall wasn't all that amazing. So that's my thoughts on it. You let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.